When you think about the villains of the Last Kingdom, who comes to mind? Is it Heston or Bloodhair? Kjartan? Ubba? Ethelwald? God, I hate Ethelwald. No. After watching Season 4, you are probably thinking of Cnut. This towering red-haired Dane is a hell of a warrior, both in and out of the show. That's right, he's real. And while he may have lost, pretty badly if I do say so myself, on TV, this was not the case in history. Historian Norman Cantor stated that Cnut was, quote-unquote, the most effective king in Anglo-Saxon history. Want to learn why? Let's talk about Cnut the Great. You're watching History and Beyond. Do you like history? Me too! Do me a favor and subscribe. Or don't. Quite frankly, I don't care. I'm just an underpaid announcer that nobody appreciates. Cnut the Great was born at some point between 985 and 995 AD to the King of Denmark, Sweyn Forkbeard, and a Polish noblewoman. It is thought that he began fighting at a young age and was described in many Norwegian sagas as a fierce Viking warrior. I like to keep things broad and simple in these videos, but it would just be plain wrong of me to keep this excerpt from a Norwegian saga from you. The saga describes Cnut as, and I quote, exceptionally tall and strong, and the recognized of men. All except for his nose, that was thin, high-set, and rather hooked. He had a fair complexion nonetheless, and a fine thick head of hair. His eyes were better than those of other men, both more handsome and keener of their sight. Nice nose, loser. Cnut accompanied his father in the invasion of England in 1013. As a mere teenager, he was left in charge of the Viking fleet at Gainsborough, Lincolnshire. It is thought that this is when he met his first wife, Elfgifu, daughter of a Northumbrian earl. Cnut's father, Sweyn, was successful in his fight for England, but only managed to hold the throne for a few weeks after he died in February of 1014. He was quickly replaced by the previous ruler, King Aethelred II. It was back to the drawing board for the Danes. It didn't take long though, as Cnut, the new leader of his father's armies, rose up and led an invasion force back to England. Although it may not have been easy, he was able to conquer all English territory except for London. Upon the death of King Aethelred in 1016, the people of London obviously chose his successor and son, Edmund Ironside, to replace the king. The Witan, however, chose Cnut. This made for an uneasy political climate and led to many skirmishes between Edmund and Cnut. After a devastating English defeat at the Battle of Assadun, and Edmund's death only a month later, Cnut had won himself the throne. He was coronated on Christmas in London, 1016. As the new king, Cnut's first actions were considered to be ruthless. He gave Englishmen estates over to Danish followers, engineered the death of Edmund's brother, Edwig, and killed or banished many prominent English nobles. He basically turned England into New Denmark in terms of leadership. Surprisingly enough, this didn't last for very long. By 1018, only 2 years later, Englishmen were once again holding earldoms in Wessex and Mercia. He even went as far as to banish Thorkel the Tall, the Dane he put in charge over East Anglia. For the rest of his reign, only one out of his 3 advisors was a Dane. Also in 1018, Cnut paid off most of his fleet. In 1019, following the death of his brother and backed by English forces, he succeeded the throne of Denmark as well. He was now in charge of both of the 2 major powers that were fighting for control over England. An impressive feat indeed. Cnut was a very effective ruler. He knew how to play the game of war, but he was also a star player in the game of politics. First of all, he became a strong supporter and generous donor to the church, and even traveled to Rome. In 1027, he attended the coronation of the Holy Roman Emperor Conrad II. He even negotiated with the Pope to reduce tolls on English merchants and pilgrims traveling to Rome. In terms of marriage, Cnut dismissed his first wife, Elfgifu, in 1017 to marry Emma of Normandy, the wife of his deceased opponent, King Alfred. Ouch. He also arranged for his daughter, from his marriage with Elfgifu, to marry Conrad II's son, and for his sister to marry the Duke of Normandy. All bases covered. With Denmark and England now in his control, Cnut also took Norway in 1028, making him the head of a massive empire surrounding the North Sea. It is said that Cnut was even able to get submission from the Scots. After his raids in Scotland, King Malcolm II recognized him as an overlord ruler, and peace with Scotland was established. Cnut ruled England for 19 years. Under his rule, both England and Scandinavia saw prosperity. This was due in part to the peacetime amongst the land, as well as many resulting trade routes that were established. His power over Viking raiders secured the safety of England, and his resources in England helped him to keep control of Scandinavia. It was brilliant. He even released a code of law in 1020, which is to this day the longest found collection of Anglo-Saxon laws. As a Last Kingdom fan, a question I had, and one I imagine you're probably wondering, is whether or not Cnut actually met Uhtred. The answer is yes, but let's just say their interaction was very different from the show. In 1016, Uhtred, who was a powerful and prominent ealdorman of Northumbria, submitted to Cnut as the King of England. Cnut then invited Uhtred to come meet him personally and had him killed in an ambush. That's pretty much it. No stealing of children, no glorious executions, and definitely not a win for Uhtred, since he, died. If you want to learn more about the real Uhtred, be sure to check out our other video on him, linked in the description. Cnut died on November 12, 1035, at Shaftesbury in Dorset and was buried in Winchester Cathedral. Cnut's legacy was carried on by his two sons, Hardicanute and Harold, who was illegitimate. Sorry, Harold. In 1042, England reverted back to its old line of kings following the death of Hardicanute the same year. I'm really enjoying doing research pertaining to the Last Kingdom, so if you would like me to make a video about another character, please let me know in the comments. That's all for today, guys. Peace, love, and pie.
Thank you for watching History and Beyond. You see that fire? It's fueled by you. Make sure to like and subscribe. And make sure to tune in next week so you can learn more and more and more and more and more until you're so smart that you can take over the world.